Do you have anything to say to me?
Oh, yes, I do.
Did I stutter?
In one corner, you have Michael, and he is mad.
Hey, stop it!
And then in the other corner, you have Stanley, and he's mad.
I've watched you screw up this office for 10 years, and I'm filing a lawsuit, and I'm gonna tell them about every stupid thing you've ever done up in this office.
Okay, everybody up.
Okay, you know what? Why don't you take my hand and leave him, and let's get out of here.
I don't understand why you keep picking on me.
Oh, for the love of God.
So that's about it.
What's up, everybody? My name's Chris, and this is The Office Field Guide, a show in which I am reviewing every episode of The Office ever. And today we are looking at Season 4's Episode 12, Did I Stutter?
What the hell is this all about?
This episode was written by two writers, Justin Spitzer and Brent Forrester, both great Office writers. Did I Stutter was directed by Randall Einhorn, and a refresher here, Einhorn is the person behind the camera most of the time. He's most often credited as the director of cinematography throughout the series. This one first aired on May 1st, 2008.
I mean, I haven't done anything since Christmas.
It was viewed by 7.7 million people and currently has an 8.3 out of 10 on IMDb. Your trivia for today is, what is the name of the extravaganza that Michael comes up with at the end of this episode? Put your answer in the comments first to get your name in next week's video. And also keep an eye out for the Easter egg. Do I need to keep saying this each week? I don't know, I'm not. So here's where your reminder's gonna be on these games every week. It's gonna be here. Okay, so special note, stay tuned to the end of this field guide so I can announce a special contest.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so I have a surprising amount of stuff to talk about for this episode. So with that, let's get to brainstorming.
I understand nothing.
First, I think this episode is structured really weird. First, the cold opening doesn't really fit with the rest of this episode, and it does feel a bit forced.
Do it now. Do it now.
Listen up, I need your ideas now.
Secondly, the A-plot of Michael and Stanley's argument, which we're really gonna dissect here in a minute, eats up only a few minutes of the first 15 minutes of the runtime. The B-plot of Andy and Dwight's car exchange, and the C-plot of Jim and Pam / Jim and Ryan stuff eats up most of that time. But once Michael gets the great idea of fake fire and Stanley...
Stanley, may I talk to you for a second?
I mean, when has fake firing ever worked for him?
I mean, when has that ever worked for you?
Never! God, we totally got you.
You're a jerk!
But once he decides that, this plotline overwhelmingly defines the rest of the runtime, which is fine, but there's a ton of story that was cut.
Gang-style fluffy fingers. It is not Daryl's fault. I think it was a great idea, just couldn't quite figure out how to do it.
That really pisses me off. I'm gonna bash his face in. I'm gonna bash his face in with a stale bagel. Then I'm gonna throw a rock at his car.
Ka-ching.
Speaking of the Xterra, there's a lot to unpack here. First, I felt that Dwight's negotiation tactics are pretty great.
You can sell it to me, and I'll use it as I would a wagon on my farm. It'll be towed by a donkey.
I have to pick one of those?
Yes.
And I can't tell what was written first, the Xterra negotiation or the shrewd emergency takeover plan.
Do it. Hey, Michael.
Okay, so there's a lot to get to. We're gonna get to that thing in a minute. But for now, let's look at Andy's flyer. Price-wise, I don't really care much, but Dwight got this thing for $1,500 off of that number, which is a crazy good deal. Andy's such a dweeb.
Do it. Shake my hand. You will sell me this car. Shake my hand.
Yeah.
But let's break down a couple other things here. First, in his description, he has airbags, anti-lock brakes, air conditioning, and AM/FM radio. Cool. All normal stuff for a car description. Second line, mirrors. Okay. Windows. All right. And character. Such an Andy ad. It's printed on some pretty nice cardstock paper too. But lastly, he printed out this entire flyer for what? Just the entire office? He didn't put his phone number on there, meaning that he only put his extension for someone in the office to call him. And look, I know, this isn't the point of this episode, it's just that these little details speak so much to the character, and they're only on screen for just a moment. But this Xterra, it actually has a cool story too. It reportedly belonged to the hairstylist on the show at the time. she sold it on eBay to a nice couple in Oklahoma.
Who buys a car on eBay?
When she found out the couple who was purchasing this vehicle were expecting a child, she loaded it up with signed office merchandise. It's kind of a cool story of the people behind the show, spreading the office love. Okay, so now let's get to Dwight's emergency plan. There's a lot to unpack here, so stick with me. Michael is not a dweeb.
No.
So,
Next, Dwight promises to give back power after the crisis is over is identical to the conversation about Caesar that they have in The Dark Knight.
Harvey, the last man that they appointed to protect the Republic was named Caesar, and he never gave up his power.
It's also what a particular dictator did back in the 30s to get power. But I'm not really sure YouTube's gonna enjoy me discussing that, so we're gonna move on. Regardless, we know how Dwight behaves when he has the littlest bit of power.
Who's ready to work?
But let's look at this thing. Let's start, as you should, with the title. Dunder Mifflin Scranton Branch Org Chart by Dwight K. Schrute. Guys, I'm gonna tell you something that's really weird about me, but I love org charts. There's something in the organization and putting it all in a simple way that you can understand people and the order of things. I love it. Dwight's chart is anything but that though. There is an asterisk here in the title, so that leads us to the footnote saying, do not duplicate or transmit intellectual property of Dwight K. Schrute for 1,000 years. Sometimes I don't know how to read Dwight. Like, is he smart? Is he stupid? Okay, let's move on. The legend, right. The only thing in the legend is Dwight's odd practice of tracking his female coworkers' cycles.
I wish I could menstruate.
Okay, and let's get into this. We have Ryan Howard, the VP of Northeast Region and Director of New Media. Ryan has a direct line flowing from him to Michael Scott and Toby Flenderson, reminding us that Toby does not work for Michael. Oh, and Toby has a Star of David with a question mark as his icon. It's also interesting that Dwight colored Ryan Toby's gyms and his own with the same shade of brown. I assume this is depicting his thought that they're somehow on the same level in some way. Dwight labeled himself as the original assistant regional manager and put his bar slightly higher than Jim's. Branching off of Michael is the sales organization, consisting of Jim, Dwight, but below Jim is Andy, who I guess Dwight actually believed that this is his title.
Andy Bernard, Regional Director in charge of sales.
Andy also has a college graduate icon, but I don't really know why. Stanley has a fist icon, apparently denoting that he's black, as it is the same icon that Daryl and Lonnie have. It's interesting that this dotted line goes all the way from Lonnie to Michael. I'm assuming that's because Dwight is perceiving that Lonnie has some sort of odd sense of power over Michael.
Baylor, I hardly know her.
Damn it, Michael, pay attention, man.
Pete is missing from this org chart, and Dwight doesn't seem to have many other details on the warehouse workers. I do love that he used that blue-gray color to emulate the color of the warehouse uniform. Oh, and I guess I should say this. While all the men tend to have icons about their race or religion or some other very identifiable trace, Dwight chose to only put the sign of a female as every woman's icon. Read into that what you will. Back up to Michael's branches, we have a few one-offs like Pam reports directly to Michael as a receptionist, as does Meredith, as does Kelly, as does Creed Bratton, with all three of them having their special one-off shade of brown. Oh, and Creed's name is in quotes, so maybe Dwight's a little bit more perceptive than we give him credit for. Oh, and Meredith's menstrual cycle is crossed out, same as Phyllis, noting that they don't have periods anymore. At this point, does anything cross the line? And the last branch off is the accounting organization, headed up by Angela, then Oscar, who's denoted by two male symbols, and then Kevin, who gets a 4-leaf clover, and Tom Peets.
Oh, that guy was weird.
When Dwight flips a chart overlay over, it has a solid black bar leading to every single employee, suggesting that he fully takes over. It also, for some reason, puts the warehouse in lockdown. And we also get some new names here that are showing Dwight's family hierarchy, which goes from Dwight to Mose, Mose to Heindel, to Shirley, to Vader, who has authority over Mutter.
Oh, hello, Mutter. Good news, I've married. Tell Vater. Such a nice woman.
And all of this whole prop is on screen for just a matter of seconds, which props to the prop department for pulling this off and putting so much thought into this one little bit. But I guess that also means that Dwight has this thing in his possession on any given day. All right, and with that, let's dive into the deeper meaning.
What does a bean mean?
Someone please explain it to Cat.
Okay, this episode has a lot of meat to it.
Who wants some man meat?
I do. I want some man meat.
The cringe in this one comes off the bat when Michael puts together a brainstorming session.
We're going to have a little brainstorming session in the conference room.
These meetings are useless.
Once he invokes Stanley's name a few times, Stanley pushes back, and then Michael bows out.
Did I stutter?
Okay, so since I first posted my original field guide, I received a few comments, partnered with a couple things that I've seen on Facebook groups and on Reddit. There's a notion at play here that Stanley's pushing back on Michael here due to the racial tension that they have, based on Michael's jokes like this.
Maybe a whole theme, like a rap rhyme.
An urban thing.
An urban, yeah. Stanley, you want to help us out with that?
I grew up in a small town. What about me seems urban to you?
And so, hey, I'm me. I can't speak to all of the crap that Stanley has to put up with.
You're so white.
And thankfully, we don't have to imagine or speculate what Stanley's deal with Michael is. As he says it, he lays it all out during this tirade.
I've watched you screw up this office for 10 years, and I'm filing a lawsuit, and I'm gonna tell them about every stupid thing you've ever done up in this office.
The likes of which we haven't seen since season 2.
Every day you do something stupider than you did the day before. And I think there's no possible way he can top that. But what do? You find a way, damn it, to top it. You are a professional idiot.
But once the pretense and the anger is out of the way, Stanley breaks it down like this.
You are a person I do not respect. The things you say, your actions, your methods and style, everything you would do, I would do it the opposite way.
I'm not saying that Michael's race stuff has nothing to do with Stanley's outburst. There's certainly enough to warrant a lawsuit that he references, but that just doesn't seem in line with Stanley's character and what's written for the dialogue in this episode. You could say that maybe he didn't feel safe to bring that up, but I'd argue that Stanley felt safe in that moment because, you know,
you are a professional idiot.
It's funny that this episode's deeper meaning is a look at how to deal with difficult people. Ryan's tactic is to be a snake and try to get Jim fired.
Wallace likes Jim, so going after him, that's a risky move for me. But in business, you gotta take risks.
Stanley's is to ignore until he explodes. Andy's to bow out and just get taken. Dwight's approach is to make them pay in other ways and be super aggressive. And Michael's is to avoid. And there's even a great deleted scene where he walks out of the building across the lot just to enter by the annex to go to the bathroom. So the message of this episode is weaved in these final moments between Stanley and Michael, in which Michael and Stanley speak some truth to each other.
All right, you don't respect me. I accept that. But listen to me. You can't talk to me that way in this office. You just can't. I am your boss.
Both agree to disagree, but Michael makes it firm that he can't allow Stanley to talk to him like that, to which Stanley agrees. It might be the first time that Stanley actually respects Michael, Pretzel Day aside. And in the world today, finding common ground with people that we don't see eye to eye with is essential. The more divided the world gets, the less we speak from the heart and with truth. Instead, we share memes that say terrible things about other humans that we think is clever.
I don't come up with this stuff. I just forward it along. You wouldn't arrest a guy who's just delivering drugs from one guy to another.
Stanley should have stood his ground several times throughout the series so far because Michael is an inconsiderate person, quite often invoking race and other stereotypes on his employees. But in the end, we see that the common ground was reached because they spoke to one another.
Feedback? Anybody? Stanley?
Has potential to be your best idea yet.
But with that, let's get to the Dundies.
And then I gotta get him to the Dundies.
Okay, the wholesome, over-explaining simple things Dundee goes to Kevin Malone.
Michael, if you hadn't told us this, then we would have thought that you were actually firing.
I'm not. Which I don't know is one of my favorite lines of all time. And the Dundee for crap, I don't even know what to call it, is this bit.
Rodney Dangerfield.
Hey, I don't get no respect.
Okay, I can't play the whole thing, but Steve Carell, in the character of Michael Scott, blends bits of several different comedians in this sequence that, I'll be honest, probably breaks this episode's structure more than anything else, but I don't even care. It's one of those comedic moments that really show how talented Carell is as he goes from Dangerfield.
My wife likes to talk after sex, so she called me from a hotel room, said, I don't respect you.
To Seinfeld.
You know what don't get no respect? Airplane food. Why don't they just make the plane out of the airline food?
To Henny Youngman.
Now you take my wife.
please.
My wife don't get no respect. So take her, please, for example.
To Jeff Foxworthy.
If you don't get no respect, you might be a redneck.
To Borat.
Respect is nice.
To Seinfeld. Again.
What's the deal with grape nuts? No grapes, no nuts.
Take my Dundee and let's get to the ratings.
This is the worst.
Okay, this episode, as I've alluded, is structurally kind of a mess. Pacing is odd, and a lot of things feel unresolved, except for the complete and utter resolution of the A-plot. The disjointed feel begins with a completely unrelated cold opening, which I give a 4 out of 5. This is the definition of a great cold opening in my opinion.
I love it! Come on!
Anytime Carell is excited about something, engages the office, and we get a killing field in the cold opening, it's great. It just has nothing to do with the episode, so 4 out of 5 is what it is. But for this episode, the A-plot of this one takes such dominance of the storytelling that it's hard to even remember what the rest of this episode is about. The problem is that the rest of this episode is 12 to 13 minutes, but once the A-plot is resolved, then we still have that really long, dry comedy bit, and then the clip where it shows that Michael actually will retain something for once. I'm gonna give this episode a 4 out of 5. There's enough in this episode to warrant a lower score, but the overwhelming amount of stuff to talk about makes me realize how much thought, comedy, and sheer acting love that they stuffed into this one. But that's just what I think of Did I Stutter? What are your thoughts? Leave them in the comments along with those contest answers and the emoji sequence summing up next week's episode, which is the job fair.
Damn it!
And if you're still here, stick with me for another minute because I've got something else exciting to talk to you about. As we approach the end of season 4, I'd like to announce a contest that I'm running in honor of the season 4 finale, Goodbye Toby, which is still a couple weeks away, but I've always loved the Goodbye Toby song, and I think it's a highlight of that episode and a great character moment in general. So here's a contest. I'm asking you to write a Michael Scott parody song. It can be Beers in Heaven, it can be Total Eclipse of the Fart, it can be whatever song you want to parody, but it has to be written in Michael Scott's voice or mind or whatever. I'll take submissions of just the lyrics, but the real winners here are going to be ones who perform the songs themselves, as this is a visual medium. If you're not musically inclined like me, then grab a friend who is and work on it together. But I've also reached out to a friend who's also a super fan of The Office and also a singer-songwriter. So if you'd like her to perform your song for you, then just put that in the submission, which I'll need on this date. Oh, and the prize. Here's the prize.
$1,000.
Okay, I'm joking. I'm not rich, guys. For the prize, the winner is gonna get a CultureFly Office box, as long as the company will ship to your region. This isn't a sponsored thing. I just think they're really cool. So if the winner's outside of one of those regions, then I'll work to send them something of equalish value, as long as it's possible with travel and postal restrictions. Things are weird right now, guys. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I'll put more information about the contest in the description with the legal jargon and how to submit your entries. If you're watching this in the future, then ignore all of this and you'll be able to watch this episode in a few minutes. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this. Thank you so much for all the comments, all the feedback. It's awesome to know that people are enjoying this. So with that, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.
Did I stutter?
Oh yeah, and if you like the Did I Stutter audio track, it was done by the super talented Dimitri. Dude's a genius. Go check out his channel. Links in the description.